Would you like to pay off all of your debt and achieve financial independence through business ownership and real estate investing so you can leave a legacy for your family? Today, I'm going to show you how to go from living paycheck to paycheck to becoming completely debt-free and owning 7 rental properties paid off free and clear in a decade so you can achieve financial independence and build that legacy for your family. Now, I'm going to do this by sharing with you the #1 millionaire money secret that wealthy families have been using for years to pay off their debts quickly, create massive leverage, and build 7-figure real estate portfolios in record time. Now, the unfortunate truth out there is that most people are never taught anything about money. And most people only learn to work for money instead of learning how to have their money work for them. I'm also going to share with you the #1 wealthy mindset shift that you need to make if you truly want to take control of your finances and navigate this rigged system. And yes, the system is rigged. Do you really think it's by chance that most people out there struggle with debt, causing them to pay huge amounts of interest right over to the big banks, and everyday employees, get raked over the coals in W-2 taxes, and most people work their entire life just to retire broke with nothing left to pass down? Most people out there are caught in a vicious financial cycle. I'll show you how to break that cycle so you can eliminate your debt and get ahead financially. Now, if you're on the line and you have a mortgage, student loans, or any debts that require you to pay interest, you're going to want to stick around all the way until the end of this webinar. I'm going to show you today how you can legally, morally, and ethically pay off all of your debt, even a 30-year mortgage, in a fraction of the time, without refinancing or sending in any extra payments. And this will literally save you tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. The truth is that most people make enough money to become financially free. They just don't know how to use their money right. Hi, I'm Mike Adams, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how our real estate investment group's proven system allows our students to pay off all of their debt quickly and create massive leverage, all while they learn to invest in real estate and acquire hands-off, high cash flow investment properties like clockwork, and how you can do it too. Now, imagine what it would be like to be completely debt-free, to become financially independent, and truly have the ability to fire your boss and start living life on your terms. That's what's possible when you have the right set of systems, the right frameworks to follow, and the right team of people around you to support you and help you with implementation. Now, the top 4 categories of people that this will help the most. #1, people with a mortgage, other loans or debts that they would like to pay off much faster. #2, those that are looking to get out of their 9-to-5 job and build a successful business of their own. #3, individuals and business owners that want to maximize their current income and create a cash flow retirement. And #4, new and experienced real estate investors that are looking for the best ways to create maximum leverage. So if you fit into one of these 4 categories, then you're going to love what I'm going to share with you today on this webinar. So let's dive right into the #1 millionaire money secret that wealthy families have been using for years to pay off debt quickly, create massive leverage, and build 7-figure real estate portfolios in record time. Now, this secret is actually a strategy that we call velocity banking. So what is velocity banking? Well, for starters, it's a more financially efficient way for you to use your current income to maximize your cash flow, create leverage, and help you pay off your debts in a fraction of the time. And this is going to be using tools available at the bank that anyone can use. You just need to know how to use these tools properly. And unfortunately, this kind of stuff isn't taught in most schools. What do we learn in school? We learn about the Pythagoras theorem. And sure, that might be useful to someone out there in some way. But we never learn how to do simple, basic finance. Something as simple as balancing a checkbook is not taught in schools. And there is a reason for this. A critical point to know is that everything that you know about the bank, you learned from the bank through their advertisements, through their marketing materials, and there is a certain way that banks would like for you to think and act. And always remember that they are doing this to increase their profits. Banks are in business to make money. So here's the traditional banking model that we are taught. And for the rest of this illustration today, we're going to be using the numbers of the average American household in this country. So we're going to use the numbers of the average American household here. And what we know about the average American household is the average household brings in about $60,000 per year. So divide that by 12 months, that gives us about $5,000 worth of income coming into the household. So $5,000 going in every single month to that household. And what do people do when they get their check? Well, of course, they go right to the bank. You got to cash that check. So, you go to the bank and you deposit your $5,000 and right away you start breaking up that pie, right? You got to start chopping it up. You got a $1,200 mortgage payment here. You have a $600 credit card payment. You have a $600 car payment here. We have $1,200 in here for your lifestyle, and obviously that number is going to be different for different individuals. And as well, we got that leaves us with $1,400 here going into some type of savings vehicle. Whether that's your 401k at your job, maybe you have an IRA on the side, or even just being left in whatever's left over, being left in your savings account right there at the bank. So your money goes into the bank, and you start chopping up that pie. You're sending out checks in different ways directly from your bank account, and then holding on to whatever's left in some type of savings vehicle. That's the average American household. And breaking this down a little bit further, we have this $1,200 mortgage payment. That means you have a mortgage. So we have a loan on this property. And this particular property has a loan of $200,000. So there's a $200,000 mortgage here. And also we have that at a 6% interest rate. We also have a car payment here. So that's another loan for the car with a $600 payment. What we also see here is that the average American household here has a credit card, right? So they also have this line of credit. And this particular line of credit has a $15,000 limit. And we've racked up a little debt here, okay? The average American household racked up about $12,000 worth of debt here. So we got about a $600 per month payment. And this particular line of credit is at 21%, which is the average credit card rate in the country, 21%. Now, what we notice here is you got $5,000 worth of income going into the household, and we essentially have $5,000 worth of expenses. So $5,000 going out, to the mortgage, to the car, to the credit card, to the lifestyle, and then whatever's going into the savings. So $5,000 is going in and $5,000 is going out. Let's take this a step further. Now that we see that there's loans and lines here, what's the difference? What is the difference between a line and a loan? And most people truly don't know the answer. For starters, these are the two primary products that banks offer to consumers. So what is a loan? Straightforward, a loan is a one-way lending instrument. Typically, a loan is going to have a fixed monthly payment, and each payment consists of principal and interest. And these loans have what we call amortized interest. And we're going to get back to that in a minute. This product here, the loan, this is the product that the banks most readily offer to people. And that's why most of you guys, probably have one of these types of loans, whether it's a student loan, a car loan, or even a mortgage loan. The general public is very familiar with loans. Now, the biggest problem with loans is that your principal is not liquid. When you send in that mortgage payment, the principal portion of that payment is no longer liquid once it goes to the bank. You no longer have access to your money. And why is that? Because, of course, you sent it to the bank. The banks have it. And now they get to leverage your money to make more money. And so how do they leverage it, you ask? And a critical point here is that each time you pay the bank, right, for your house payment or deposit money into your savings, that money gets turned by 10 and borrowed out again to somebody else and loaned to make more money. So that's kind of a jingle. Let me break this down in a different way. Let me give you a critical example here. When you send in your $1,200 mortgage payment to the bank has the ability to go to the Federal Reserve and get a loan for $12,000, 10 times that amount. And they pay a fraction of a point in interest to the Federal Reserve on that loan. And now, as a standard, they must keep 10%. So they must keep $1,200 of that loan at the bank on their ledger, on the books. But now, essentially, they've created, and they can now lend out that other $10,800 to somebody else at a much higher interest rate and make money. And where did that $10,800 come from? It came from thin air. It doesn't exist. It's merely a number on the bank's ledger. This number, though, what it does is that it puts more money out there in circulation, and the banks and the Federal Reserve are making money charging us interest on nothing but numbers. This is why banks always have the nicest buildings in town. They have everybody's money and they get all the leverage. Now, why is this a problem, right? Why am I so fired up about this? Because it's your money. It's your money. And if anybody's going to be leveraging your money, shouldn't it be you? Now, is it possible for you to create leverage with your money like the banks? Yes. Okay, the answer is yes. We just can't do it with loans. So what is a line of credit? You see, a line of credit is a two-way lending instrument. Okay, that means it's revolving. And there's only going to be a payment if there is a balance on that line of credit. So if there is no balance, there is no payment. And when you do have a balance, you do send in that payment, the payment actually reduces the principal. The whole payment reduces the principal, and then interest is going to be charged at the end of the billing cycle and added to that balance. And with a line of credit, we get simple interest. And again, we're going to break this down in a minute. Now, over the years, we're all taught that lines of credit are bad. And you just have to remember and understand one thing about lines of credit. A line of credit is a tool. And just like any tool, just like a hammer and nails, you need to know how to use your tools correctly. And most people use lines of credit for liabilities. They get a line of credit and they go out there and they buy big screen TVs and other things that they truly don't need. And a critical point to understand, lines of credit are for emergencies and for assets. That's it. And the great things about lines of credit is that the principal stays liquid, okay? You have access to your money. When you send in your money to the credit card, it hits that principal, it knocks down the balance, and it creates available credit. Okay, so you still have access to your money in the form of leverage in that line of credit. And this gives you the ability to leverage your money instead of handing all that leverage and giving it right to the big banks. The bottom line, guys, is that if you're not going to leverage your money for financial gain, the big banks definitely will. So now that we know that loans are a one-way lending instrument, they are amortized interest, and that principal is not liquid. When you send in that $1,200 payment, the principal portion of that payment, even though it knocked down the mortgage a little bit, you can't take your mortgage down to the grocery store and swipe it to buy your grocery. Principal is not liquid. The great thing again about the lines of credit is, number one, they are simple interest. They are revolving. It's a two-way lending instrument, and the principal stays liquid. You have access to that capital in the form of available credit or leverage in the line of credit. Now, we're taught out there to think about interest rates. So let's take one more step further. Stay with me. Let's look at this interest rate here. And on our simple interest line of credit, we have a 21% interest rate, and on our amortized loan, we have a 6% interest rate. So let me ask you this. Would you rather pay a 6% interest rate or a 21% interest rate? And, most people are going to dive right on the 6, simply because the number is smaller. But does that mean that you actually pay less in interest? A critical point to make here, lines versus loans, is that lines have simple interest. Loans have amortized interest. So what is the difference there between simple interest and amortized interest? Because most people have no clue the difference. And for starters, they are two completely different systems used to calculate interest. Think about the difference here between Fahrenheit and Celsius, right? Both of those are used to calculate temperature, right? But they're different. Did you know that 1 degree Celsius is actually hotter than 32 degrees Fahrenheit? So even though the number is smaller, the 1 degree Celsius is actually hotter than 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Understand this, guys. Amortized interest is much, much more expensive. It is definitely hotter than simple interest. Let me show you. And let's take a deep look at this mortgage. So let's break this mortgage down. And when you got this mortgage, they probably gave you an amortization table. It looks something like this, where it shows you that part of your payment is going to be interest and part of your payment is going to be principal. And then over the course of 30 years, so at the beginning of the mortgage, that very first payment, right, that first $1,200 payment, $1,000 of that payment is going to be interest, and then $200 of that payment is actually going to affect the principal and knock down the principal. And then at the end of 30 years, it'd be the opposite. So when you make that 360th payment, 200 of it would be interest and 1,000 would go to principal. So it evens out over 30 years. It's amortized. Now, the problem with this, okay, is that most people never pay off their mortgage. Most people never make every single payment for 30 years. Why? Because most people refinance their mortgage every 5 to 7 years. Okay. And what this does is it keeps you here, right, in the front side of the loan, where the highest percentage of your payment is going directly to the bank in interest. Most people stay in this high interest zone of their mortgage for a very, very long time, and it's very, very expensive. Over the first 48 months of this mortgage, you're going to literally send in $57,000 worth of payments on this mortgage, and you are only going to reduce the principal by about $13,000, and you're going to pay about $44,000 worth of interest directly to the banks. And if you were one of the very few who actually did pay this mortgage off over 30 years, you would actually end up paying over $231,000 in interest right to the big banks on this mortgage. You would actually end up paying over $431,000 for this $200,000 property. Is this accurate? Right? Some of you guys might be thinking, well, Mike, that sounds crazy. Are the banks, is that even legal for them to charge people that kind of interest? Let me show you. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. And I want to show you an amortization schedule. Okay, so here we are right here on Google, and all I did here, guys, is I went to Google. You can double check my numbers. Okay, I went to Google, I typed in mortgage amortization calculator, and I'm using this one right here. I thought it was the easiest to use. Okay, so mortgagecalculator.org, and it's going to bring you to this page right here. And you can go ahead and you can punch in my numbers and double check this for yourself. So let's look at this mortgage. So we got a $200,000 mortgage here. And we are at 6% interest rate, okay? And we can click calculate here, and it shows us the monthly payment, right? So it shows us this $11.99 So obviously in our example today, I'm rounding this to $1,200 to make it easy and simple. But let's go ahead and click create amortization schedule here, and look at what happens. Okay, so this shows you what this mortgage actually looks like, and it shows you right here with payment number 1, you're gonna send in about $1,200 worth of a payment, and just under $200 is going to affect the principal, and $1,000 is going to go directly to interest right to the big banks. And when you do the math, I mean, $1,200 by 12 months, that's $14,400. By year 1, you're going to send in $14,400, and you're going to knock down the principal here by $2,456, and $11,933 is going to go directly to the banks in interest. Out of the $14,400 that you sent in, $11,900 in the first year is going directly to interest. And you can see right here after the first year what your principal balance is. You can see it only went down by a couple of grand. Okay, so we can fast forward up to year 4 here. You can see, okay, let's keep going. Year 2, same thing, $14,400 you're sending in. You're getting $2,600 worth of principal reduction. Here's another $11,700 worth of interest. Year 3. Okay, there's another $11,600 worth of interest. Year 4, here's another $11,400 worth of interest. And you can see after year 4, our principal balance is about $189,000. So we actually got about $11,000 worth of principal reductions. I was actually pretty generous in our example. But the bottom line here is you can see that this amortized interest is incredibly expensive. So let's go back to the PowerPoint here and finish up. So now that you know the difference between a line and a loan and how brutal amortized interest really is, let's take the next step here and share with you the number 1 wealthy mindset shift that you need to make if you truly want to take control of your finances and navigate this rigged system. So who rigged the system, you ask? Well, it's your good friends over at the big banks, corporations, and the government, of course. And why, right? Why would they do this? Why would they rig the system? Well, to make money, of course. The unfortunate truth here, guys, is that the government and the big banks have been grooming you since you were a kid to get used to giving them your money. Think about this. Since you were a kid, right? Every teacher, every adult around you said that, if you want to be something in this world, you need to go to school, get good grades, get a degree so you can get a good job. And they told you things like the only two things in life that are certain are death and taxes, right? And, this one here, don't take risks, play it safe, don't spend it all in one place, kid. You hear things like that. And what we call this language is old school mentality, okay? And what this language does over time is it really starts to force you down a certain path that you think that you need to live your life. And we begin to develop what we call the employee mindset. Now, what is the problem with the employee mindset? Well, the problem is that we only learn how to exchange time for money. We only learn how to live on a cash system. We only learn how to use cash as currency. And we relentlessly focus on accumulating cash. You end up spending your life chasing a dollar. And the critical problem with the employee mindset here is that there is no leverage. The minute that you stop exchanging hours for dollars or accumulating cash, the dollars are going to stop coming in. Now, do wealthy folks want to accumulate cash? Yes, okay, of course they do, right? But that is not their focus. To the wealthy, cash accumulation is a byproduct of the two things that wealthy folks focus on creating relentlessly, which is cash flow and leverage. So what is cash flow? Cash flow is your income minus all of your expenses. What's left over? That is your cash flow. It's the money that you have left over every month after all of your bills are paid. And out there, in the corporate world, we're taught to focus on what we make, our annual salary or our hourly pay, not so much about how much money we actually keep. This is the mindset shift that we really need to make here. You see, wealthy people think completely different. They have what we call a wealthy mindset. You see, wealthy mindset individuals are not interested in exchanging time for money. Wealthy mindset individuals are not interested in using cash as currency. They know their cash can be used in a better way. See, the wealthy use cash as velocity to pay off debts, reduce interest payments, and to create additional leverage. And they create leverage in lines of credit. They then use that leverage as currency to pay for their lifestyle, their monthly expenses, and since the lines are simple interest, the wealthy leverage those lines to pay off their expensive amortized loans much, much quicker. You see, wealthy mindset individuals are not interested in sending extra cash to loans. They know that they're giving away their cash flow and they lose all their leverage. Wealthy mindset individuals are not interested in using savings accounts at the bank because they know that they're just giving the leverage right to the bank. And savings accounts earn very, very little interest. And we see what banks are able to do, charging people amortized interest on loans. So they're getting all the leverage. So what do the wealthy do? And what would they do with this average American household scenario? And now that you know the difference between a line and a loan, and the importance of cash flow, and the power of leverage, let me show you how this powerful velocity banking strategy works. So here we are with the average American household here. And now remember, the two things that wealthy folks focus on creating relentlessly are cash flow and leverage. So the first thing that we need to do here is they're going to look at this and they're going to want to apply their wealthy mindset where they're using cash as velocity and then using leverage as currency. You see, we need to maximize the cash flow here. So what a wealthy person would do in this scenario is they would take this $5,000 worth of total income going into the household and they would say, okay, where can we actually create some leverage? They already know that if they leave it in the savings account, they're losing all the leverage. If they send the additional money directly from your bank account directly to the loan, you're losing all of that leverage. You're giving away all of your cash flow. The only place in this scenario that we can create some leverage is inside of that line of credit. So a wealthy individual is going to take this $5,000 worth of income and they're going to send it all directly to the line of credit. And watch and stick with me. Watch how this changes our numbers. And let's see how this plays out. Here's what happens. When you send the whole $5,000 to the line of credit, here's what this does. It actually eliminates that $600 credit card payment, right? We no longer have to account for that payment because we're sending all $5,000 directly to the line. So that actually frees up that $600 payment and creates $600 that we can go ahead and add to your cash flow. Also, since we're no longer going to be using those savings accounts that are earning us no interest at all, and seeing how much money we're actually paying out in interest to the amortized loans, it's far more important to get rid of those loans before you're leaving money in this particular savings account right there at the bank. So we're going to eliminate doing that. And bottom line is this: do you need to have an emergency fund? Yes. Okay. So, but wealthy folks use different vehicles that are very liquid, like a cash value life insurance policy, to store their money versus leaving it in a basic savings account at the bank. Okay, so no, there's other tools out there. So either way, for now, the average American household, we are going to eliminate that money just sitting in the savings account, and we're going to add that directly to our cash flow. So now we have $2,000 worth of cash flow here, and what we have left over is we have $3,000 worth of expenses. We have the $1,200 mortgage, which we can pay using the line of credit. We have the $600 car payment, and then you also have your $1,200 for your lifestyle. So we got $5,000 going in and $3,000 going out in expenses. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, now, Mike, if I send all my money to the line of credit, how am I going to pay my other bills? Now, a critical point to make here is that you need to think of your line of credit as your new checkbook. Again, remember, the line of credit is revolving. We're going to use that as your new checkbook. You're going to pay all of your expenses using the line instead of sending checks from your bank account. So let's see what happens when we play this velocity banking strategy out on this line of credit. So let's get it up here, and we got our $15,000 line of credit, and we're starting off with a $13,000 balance on this line of credit. So month one is going to come in. Your $5,000 worth of income is going to come into the household, and we're going to send all $5,000 directly to the line of credit, and we're going to knock that balance immediately down from $13,000 down to $8,000. And then we're going to use the line to go ahead and pay your $3,000 worth of expenses. So it's going to go back up by $3,000 to $11,000 balance. So what you notice here, and this will be month one, and we see that the balance here went down by our cash flow number, which is $2,000. So now month two, $5,000 coming in, bringing the balance down to $6,000, $3,000 out, bringing it back up to $9,000. We got $5,000 going in, $3,000 out in expenses. $5,000 going in, $3,000 out. 5,000 in, 3,000 out, 5,000 in, 3,000 out, 5,000 in, and boom. So, and it's really simple math here, with a $13,000 balance, with this going down every month by our cash flow, going down by $2,000 every month, we can see that we're going to pay off this balance in about 6.5 months. So it took us 6.5 months to pay down the simple interest line of credit, just leveraging a strategy, just leveraging a financial strategy in a more efficient way to use your money. It went down by the cash flow every single month, and you paid that off within 6.5 months. So now that the line of credit is paid off, what's next? You see, remember that expensive amortized mortgage that you have? Let's go ahead and take a chunk of that amortized debt from the mortgage and move it over to the simple interest line of credit, essentially transforming the interest that you are paying on that debt, making it much easier for you to pay off. So here's what we're going to do with this $15,000 line of credit with a zero balance is we're going to go ahead and we're going to get a balance transfer check, and you're going to write a check for $13,000 principal only and send it directly to your mortgage company. So we're essentially transforming $13,000 worth of principal. Because the great thing about, a cool thing about loans is that when you actually prepay the principal, you don't have to pay the interest. So we're going to use this line, send over a $13,000 balance transfer check, and transfer $13,000 from that principal over to this line of credit. And then we are immediately going to start using the velocity banking strategy, where you put your $5,000 into that line of credit, and every month pay your expenses, $3,000 out, $5,000 in, $3,000 out, $5,000 in, $3,000 out. And again, it's the same numbers here. So we're looking at another $13,000 balance. So we know that it's going to take us about 6.5 months to pay down this line of credit, simply using the velocity banking strategy. It's going down by our cash flow each and every month. And this is actually reducing the principal mortgage balance by $13,000. Okay. And one thing I want to bring to your attention is this. Now, yes, on a line of credit, with 21% interest, yes, there's going to be some interest charges here, and you can do the math yourself. Okay, you can run the numbers on that one yourself. But with a $13,000 balance over 6.5 months, you're looking at about $1,300 worth of interest. Okay, and obviously, and I'm shooting that high because the balance is actually going down every single month here. But we're going to call it $1,300 worth of interest to get $13,000 worth of principal reduction on that mortgage. And to bring this into perspective, when we were sending the money to the amortized loan over 48 months, 4 years, okay, you sent in $57,000 worth of payments to reduce the principal by $13,000. And you actually paid $44,000 in interest to do that. By taking that same $13,000 in principal and transforming it over to a simple interest line of credit, you were able to pay down that same balance in 6.5 months, and you only paid about $1,300 worth of interest. This literally can save you over $43,000, about $43,000 in interest over the first 4 years of this mortgage that would normally just go right over to the big bank. And over the course of 4 years, guys, that's $11,000 per year added back to your family's budget instead of just giving it to the bank. Simply put, guys, by rinsing and repeating this process every 6 months, moving $13,000, transferring it over from amortized loan to the simple interest line, you will pay off this 30-year mortgage. The car and the credit card will be gone too within about 6 years. And this is without refinancing and without increasing your income. We left everything the same. Simply using the velocity banking strategy. And this is going to allow you to finally win the banking game and start getting ahead financially. Love this quote by Bob Hope. He says that the bank is a place that will lend you money if you can prove that you don't need it. And that is so true. And in our scenario now, the great thing about not having a mortgage is that you no longer have a mortgage payment. So we can go ahead and eliminate that $1,200 and add that to our cash flow. And it's been about 6 years. So the vehicle payment was made every single month, leveraging the line of credit. So the car is now paid off as well. We can add that $600 to our cash flow. And this brings us up to $3,800 worth of cash flow. And the only expenses that we have left here is your lifestyle. And as you can see, we have left that at $1,200 the whole time, and we have not changed that. You also have a property. You have your own home paid off free and clear. So you got a $200,000+ asset that could be leveraged. You have equity there. And you also have this line of credit with a zero balance. And the average American household now has perfect credit. Okay, when you start behaving in this way, banks reward this type of behavior. Okay, and they normally reward it in increasing lines of credit, raising the balance. I guarantee you this, if you're leaving money in your savings account, I guarantee the bank is never going to call you up and say, hey, you're a really good saver, here's some additional lines of credit. They don't reward that kind of behavior. So in this scenario, it's easy to see that the bank could increase the limit on this credit card by a simple $10,000. So in this scenario, we're going to say that the bank is giving you an additional $10,000 on this line of credit, which is an additional $10,000 worth of leverage. So here we are with our $25,000 line of credit, and we have a zero balance on this card. So for the average American household, after 6 years, guys, life is good. They're in a pretty good spot. Now, some people might be content to stop right here with being debt-free, but we still have a big problem. And the problem is that you are still exchanging time for money. What if your hours get reduced, your bonuses get cut, you get laid off, or even terminated? What we know about corporate America is that at any moment, for any reason, the boss could let you go. So what would the wealthy do about this situation? Now, remember, lines of credit are for emergencies and for assets. And for our average American household, they don't have any emergencies right now. So let's use the leverage in the line of credit to accumulate additional cash flow producing assets. At the beginning of this webinar, I said that I would show you how you could go from living paycheck to paycheck to becoming completely debt-free and owning 7 rental properties paid off free and clear in a decade. So you can achieve financial independence and build a legacy for your family. So let's leverage this line of credit and use the velocity banking strategy to build financial independence. Okay, so here we are with our $25,000 line of credit. And what we're going to do here to start building and achieving financial independence, what we're going to do is we're going to take this line of credit, we're going to write a check on this line for $20,000 for a down payment on one of these. We're going to go ahead and we're going to buy a single family rental property. And this particular property has a market value of $120,000. So you put down 20 grand on that. And we have a leftover mortgage of $100,000. And this property here is going to cash flow about $400 per month. Now, here's the great thing about this. Now we have an additional $400 worth of cash flow, and we can add that directly to our cash flow, bringing us up to $4,200 per month in cash flow. And so now we are going to immediately start incorporating the velocity banking strategy on this rental property's mortgage, and immediately send all of your income, including the new cash flow. So you're essentially sending $5,400 with your income and your $400 of cash flow directly to the line of credit. And then you have your $1,200 in expenses coming out. And essentially every month, this is going to go down by our cash flow. So every month, this $20,000 balance is going to get paid down in about 5 months, going down by $4,200 per month. So in about 5 months, we're getting $20,000 worth of principal reduction on this mortgage on your rental property. So we already know how much interest we just saved there doing it in this way. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to write another $20,000 check, and we're going to keep rinsing and repeating this process. And we're going to chunk down this rental property's mortgage the same way we did with yours. Bottom line, guys, is if you repeat this process, you will literally pay off your first rental property within about 2 years. You got to keep in mind, there's also a renter in this property making a payment that's also hitting that mortgage and knocking down the principal. So within 2 years, we're going to pay off your first rental property using the velocity banking strategy. And that's going to go ahead and that's going to change our numbers, right? Because the great thing about not having a mortgage on that property is that you no longer have a mortgage payment that you have to make. And the average rents in this country are over $1,000. So we're going to move our cash flow number from $400 up to $1,000 on this particular property. And that raises our total cash flow number up to $4,800 per month in cash flow. So what's the next step here? Because obviously one rental property is not going to bring us to financial freedom. We're going to need some more of those. So how can we create some additional leverage? Well, now we have this property paid off free and clear. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this property, you're going to bring it down to the bank, and you're going to ask them to give you a home equity line of credit on this property. They're going to try to give you a mortgage, but you don't want one of those. You want the home equity line because this is revolving. And we're going to get a $120,000 line of credit attached to the equity in this property. And now here's my question. How many $20,000 checks can you write with a $120,000 line of credit? Well, you can write 6 of them, right? So we're going to go ahead and pick up 6 more, leveraging this line of credit, okay? Leveraging banks' money. We're going to leverage this line of credit to get 6 more rental properties. And let's assume the same numbers as our original rental with the market value of $120,000, the $20,000 down payment on each, so leaving a $100,000 mortgage on each of those properties, and each property will cash flow. Put a renter in there, the property is going to cash flow about $400 per month. So 6 of those properties times $400, that's an additional $2,400 that we get to go ahead and add to our cash flow, bringing our total cash flow number up to $7,200 per month in cash flow. And so now that we have this big $120,000 line of credit, we're going to take our $25,000 line and we're going to put that in the drawer. We're going to hold that off to the side because now we're playing with this big, juicy $120,000 home equity line of credit that has a $120,000 balance on this line. And so immediately, what are we going to do? We're going to immediately start using the velocity banking technique where all of your income, all of your cash flow is hitting this line of credit, knocking the balance down every single month by our cash flow number of $7,200. Bottom line, guys, is this. You are going to pay down this entire $120,000 on this HELOC within about 16 months using the velocity banking strategy. And then you're going to rinse and repeat. Keep in mind as well, you have renters in these properties making payments that is also hitting the mortgage. Okay, but if you rinse and repeat this process, run the numbers, you will pay off these 6 rental properties in about 3 years, giving you a total of 7 rental properties paid off free and clear in just about a decade. Okay, we paid off the original house and car in about 6, the first rental property in about 2, and these other 6 are going to get paid off in about 3 years. So just over a decade using the velocity banking strategy without changing your spending habits or without earning any additional income. Using the velocity banking strategy, and this beefs our cash flow number up. Now that we don't have mortgages on those properties, that beefs our cash flow number up to $10,800 per month in cash flow. So again, for the average American household using this velocity banking strategy, we ended up in a scenario where, yes, we ended up keeping our employment, but we wound up with a $10,800 monthly cash flow. And we also ended up with a ton of additional benefits that we didn't address here. In the scenario, we end up with $1 million plus in leverageable assets between your personal residence and also these 7 rental properties. There are incredible tax advantages to owning and controlling real estate, like depreciation, reducing the amount of taxes that you need to pay on your money, and really building a legacy for your family. Imagine building a business that when you're gone, you pass this down to your kids, and you're truly creating a more secure cash flow retirement. Now, how does that sound for a retirement plan, having those rental properties? Compared to the cash accumulation model that the banks taught you, at your current rate of retirement savings, do you have enough time left to get to where you want to be financially? A good friend of mine, Mitch Nelson, says that when knowledge increases, behavior changes. And now that we have increased your knowledge, you can change your financial behavior to save thousands of dollars in interest, maximize your cash flow, and create massive leverage for yourself and your family using the velocity banking strategy.